Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Crucial Conversations podcast. My goal on this platform is to empower others towards self-fulfillment. These are the conversations that you need to have to unlock your maximum potential. Whether you are feeling confused about your path in life, falling in love, starting a business, healing your inner child, moving to a foreign country, embarking on your spiritual journey, or building generational wealth, let's talk. The range of emotions and experiences that allow us to fully live our lives on earth are beautiful and yet can be difficult to navigate. My goal is to create a safe space to talk about life, the good and the bad, in an effort to share wisdom, advice, and insight. I want to connect with you. I want to encourage you and empower you to live the life of your dreams, while reminding you that that does not always mean that you need to change your circumstances. Together, we will help each other level up and have the crucial conversations necessary to do so. All right, we are live, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of the Crucial Conversations podcast. Today, I have a very old friend all the way back from middle school to join me today. This is Drake. Drake, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
So I'm going to give a little bit of background around Drake, who he is, what I'm hoping that he is going to be able to discuss for all of you guys today. Drake is like a health guru, in my opinion. You know, he has the physical health down, but he also is very adamant on nutritional health, mental health, and how all of those things fit together, and looking at the whole model versus just piece by piece, which is something that I really appreciate about his approach to health overall. So I'm going to read Drake's bio for you guys. Drake has been a lifelong athlete and has recently turned his focus toward being a certified personal trainer and online health coach. He specializes in transformations for everyday people through sustainable diet and exercise practices. His focus, as he states, is not to change the minds of others, but to get them thinking and doing their own research. So Drake's expertise and his knowledge really covers nutrition, strength, and hypertrophy.
Yes, that's the one. Correct.
That's the one. Metabolic health, male hormone optimization, and he's got all the experience prepping and competing in a bodybuilding competition, fixing his mental and physical health through diet, exercise, and lifestyle change. And today he's going to share a little bit about all of the above and how he actually was able to get himself off of antidepressants and anxiety meds and lose 45 pounds. So Drake, welcome to the show. If I missed anything, I'd love for you to add a little bit more of an intro for yourself.
No, that's it. That was wonderful. I think you pretty much covered all the bases there. I made sure that I wanted to note this right in the beginning that all of this stuff is going to be at a very, not like a super surface level, but just so that everybody can understand it. I don't want to talk in such scientific terms that the everyday person can't watch us and really pull something out of this. So anything that I say, if anybody has questions after this, obviously can reach out to me, or there's plenty of resources online that I think we'll probably touch on later because I left those for you, Gabby, that we can mention so that you guys can continue to dig deep into this and do research to your heart's content.
Yay, I'm super excited. I've been looking forward to this conversation. I know Drake and I were talking a little bit before we started recording about how we've both been anticipating this conversation, been looking forward to it. I really just, like I said, Drake is someone that inspires me and I think a lot of other people. And so I'm really excited to give him this platform to be able to talk about all the things that he's such an expert in. So like I said, you know, Drake is fitness guru. So where I would like to start is really just how your fitness journey brought you to where you are now, and has made you into who you are. So I'd like to go from the very beginning of how you got into health. I don't just mean physical fitness, but really the whole pie, right? How you got started and how it led you to where you are today.
Oh boy, this is a real loaded question. I love how we're starting off strong. So I'm going to go way back to, I guess, the very beginning where I wasn't initially focused. I just come out when I was in kindergarten, all of a sudden started lifting weights. That wasn't how things started. I grew up in a very athletic family. Everybody played sports. Everybody did things. I think when I was little, I did basketball and baseball and football and lacrosse. And I did a little bit of everything. And so initially, my athletic background was mostly football. So I'll touch on that for the most part. I was training, I was doing speed and agility training. I was going in, doing weight training when I was in middle school, kind of got a basic idea of just the basics. As soon as I got into high school, same kind of deal. My life goal was I got to go play professional football. I got to go do all these things because my dad, my uncles both played, or all three of them played Division I college football. So this is what was expected of me. I was just expected to be this athlete. And so that's what I was trying to do. My training was specifically focused around football. So after 2 years in high school playing football and training for football, I kind of realized that, maybe this football stuff isn't for me. And that was crazy, like I said, coming from this athletic background where this is what was expected. I was going to go to college. I was going to play sports in college. That was just the plan. And so when I started to have these kind of apprehensions, like maybe I want to do something a little bit different, I was like, let's change something. And so what started to happen was I kind of fell in love with the process of being in the gym more than I did actually playing the sport. And so I would, go in the gym every single day, kind of was still wishy-washy on the football thing. This was sophomore year of high school. And I'd go and still do the football workouts, but then I'd kind of do my own thing. I'd start to do my own research. And I got more into watching all these YouTubers and they provided all this information. So I started to learn things on my own. And eventually my junior year came around. I decided, nope, not playing football anymore. Not a very popular decision in the family. But you know what? I am so happy that I made that decision for myself because it obviously led me on the journey that I'm in today. And so started lifting weights, started being consistent in the gym throughout high school. Eventually, it was time for me to go to college. I found myself at Grand Valley University in Grand Rapids. Same kind of deal, was just lifting weights. And then, I don't know, this is kind of a different story that I wanted to tell as far as like the mental health journey goes, because that was something that I kind of dealt with growing up, and it was more so than just, this story. There's a lot more to it than that.
Sure.
So, when I got into college, I was kind of just following what everybody told me to do. Everybody told me, you have to go to college, you have to graduate. And I was very blessed that my dad was paying for my college. Wonderful thing. If your parents pay for your college, you're so blessed beyond belief. It was a wonderful thing. So I didn't have to worry about that, and that was great. But same kind of thing came up where I start to feel like I'm kind of doing this for somebody else. I'm not really doing this for myself. I never wanted to go to school. When I was in high school, I was always running little businesses and stuff. I don't know, Gabby, how much you know about that. But when I was in high school, I used to run businesses. And in college, I was still doing a detailing business, and I was making money. I was like, why am I going to school? I'm making really, really, really good money doing this. And so my mental health was kind of starting to suffer because I kind of felt like I was living for other people. And I was at that turning point again. This was my sophomore year of college. I just finished it. I was about to be going into my junior year. And I was just like, yeah, time to change something again. I have these moments every few years, like something's got to change. I got to do something new. Yep. Which means we're growing. That's a good thing. If you don't think you're doing the wrong thing every once in a while, you need to make a change, you're not growing. So junior year came around. I already had enrolled in my classes for that year. I think it was, the fall semester. And I remember, it's so funny because I was sitting in a math class. I was taking my math test. And I thought to myself, I literally said this out loud. I wish I had a video of this. This is a movie moment. Sitting here taking my math test, first day of class, I'm like, what the heck am I doing with my life? Why am I said this out loud to myself. Why am I doing this? I don't want to be doing this. And I already have stuff set up for my future. I already have other ideas of what I want to be doing. So kind of, again, that was a turning point for me. I kid you not, that day, right after that math test, which I didn't finish because, why would I do that? I logged into my student portal and I decided, nope, not doing this anymore. Not going to school. I'm going to figure out something else, which eventually led me into other work stuff, but I don't need to touch on that. But dropped out of school, and this was at a point where I was at my heaviest. I was like 215 pounds, and I didn't feel good. I felt disgusting. I felt gross. I was on Zoloft, which I'm sure lots of people are probably familiar with. I think something like 30% of the United States is prescribed some kind of antidepressant anxiety medication. I was on 25 milligrams of Zoloft every single day, and I found myself at a point where I was overweight. I was sleeping 12 to 14 hours a day. All I wanted to do was sleep all the time. I felt super complacent. So the way that anxiety drugs work, or at least this one specifically, it's an SSRI. So it works on your serotonin receptors. And serotonin is your peace hormone in your body. So when you have a lot of serotonin in your body, it makes you feel calm. It makes you feel at rest, which is really good for people with anxiety and depression. But for me, it just made me feel like a lazy bum all the time. And I was so not happy with that because I'm like, go, go, go. I want to be doing stuff. I want to be moving. I want to be, achieving things. And here I am, complacent, doing nothing. And so I was on those drugs on that specifically for, I think, 2.5 years from the beginning of my freshman year of college, or just before that when I was transitioning into my freshman year, until right around that point where I had that breaking point in when I was taking my math class. And so I went to the doctor. I got all kinds of blood work done. I was concerned because I was like, I don't know what it is that's causing me to just feel tired and complacent all the time. I didn't connect the 2 and 2 with the anxiety medication the way that I was feeling. And so I got my testosterone levels checked. I got my thyroid checked. I got every possible thing that the doctor said it could be checked. And everything came back flying colors, normal. I'm perfectly healthy, meaning like blood markers were healthy. Mentally was not the best, but blood markers were really healthy. And so I was like, I think that the only thing left to check is the anxiety medication. So nope, time to go, time to get off that stuff, time to figure something else out. I would much rather find a healthy way to deal with this anxiety that I had been dealing with my whole life than to just be tired and not be able to do anything for the rest of my life. Because like, what kind of life is that if you're sleeping the whole thing away and you're not happy with what you're doing? Something's got to change. And so I decided, okay, going to go back to baseline, got off that medication. And within a few months, I was starting to feel so much better. I was feeling so great. It was wonderful. I all of a sudden had my energy back. I didn't have anxiety, which, looking back, doing some self-reflection, that whole living for other people and doing the things that other people tell me was the right thing to do was kind of leading to that anxiety deep down. And I didn't really understand that because in my mind, I was, what is causing my anxiety? I don't really know. I'm not really anxious about anything specifically. I just have this underlying, why am I anxious all the time? Everything makes me anxious. Certain things bring it out more than others, whatever. But as soon as I, started pursuing what I wanted to be pursuing, gone. Everything was gone. And I felt so much better. I started losing weight. I started having more ambition in everything that I was doing. And a big part of this, obviously, and we're going to touch back, go full circle here, was my diet and my exercise. So obviously I've been relatively consistent with exercise most of my life. Obviously there's periods in between with when COVID happened, when I had, this was 3 different medical events in my life. I had 2 surgeries and a heart issue. This was more recently, but we'll touch on that later. But I had all these things that I was dealing with, but now finally at a good point, things are moving forward. And exercise is consistent again. Things are really good. So I don't even remember what the initial question was here, how we were getting into. I told you, I just ADHD brain keeps going and going, and all of a sudden we're a million miles down the road, and I don't remember what the point I was trying to make was.
Well, honestly, you answered the question. You might have forgotten what the question was, but you had the question. Mm-hmm. Really was just your journey and kind of how you got here. And I think that I'm so happy you touched on both the mental and the physical health and your diet and, then getting back, to who you truly felt like you are meant to be. And I think that underlying feeling of anxiety that you experienced because you felt like you were living for someone else or living out someone else's dreams, achievements, whatever. I feel like that is something that a lot of people probably struggle with. And just that underlying feeling of, I don't think I'm doing what is meant for me. And, medication for that kind of thing is like a whole nother conversation for another day. I know that I want to open it up a little bit today. But I think that, really doing that self-reflection is so important because it may be as simple as, hey, I don't think I actually want to go to college. I would rather be focusing my time on, this business or that business or building out my career in this way. And it might be something that is as categorical as that. But for other people, it might just be like an entire full circle kind of thing of I am trying to be someone that I'm not, so I think that self-reflection is so important. So I love that you touched on that. But I would like to talk a little bit more specifically about, your your recent experience participating in that bodybuilding competition and how you got yourself from, you said, you were not feeling so hot, you were feeling kind of gross and overweight, and your mentality wasn't there, how you went from that to competing in a bodybuilding competition and what drove you to do that.
Okay, yeah. So this, I think, was probably the biggest experience for me, was this competition. So it's on the surface level, it's like, okay, you dieted down and you did a show. It's like that doesn't seem very deep, but I don't want to say that everybody should do something like this in their life that really pushes them, that's really just like, mentally challenging, to really kind of figure out who they are. And so it was so much more than just like a physical transformation for me. It was me kind of finding out like what works for me, who am I through this. And this is when I really started looking into, what is the optimal human diet? What is going to make me feel the best? Because I am obsessed with that. I'm like, how can I be the best? How can I be the best at this? What is the best for this? I do so much research into everything I do before I do it. What is really healthy? So I started optimizing and doing a primarily, I'll say, carnivore diet, but it's more so just like animal based. I would mostly eat meat. So grass-fed meats like ground beef was my primary because it was relatively inexpensive, and I do believe that ground beef that is 100% grass-fed is about the healthiest meat that you can put into your body. Fruit, honey, raw dairy, as much as I can find. So in Michigan and in lots of states, raw dairy is really difficult to come across. It's technically illegal to buy, but there's certain loopholes that you can do, and in other states it's legal. It's a whole weird thing. But that was pretty much it. Very, very, very lean. And I felt unbelievable. I was like living off of this amazing high, one in part because I was obviously eating so well. I was losing weight. I was making sure I was doing cardio and taking care of my heart health and whatnot. And after 3 weeks out, I was kind of like, okay, now I'm starving myself and this is getting to be unhealthy. So I'd say up to that point, I felt really good. And I think that is a prime example for people watching, that when you eat these whole food diets, I wasn't really that hungry. Like, yes, I would think about food. Yes, I would rather eat a little bit more, but I wasn't starving. I wasn't so terrible. I wasn't just thinking about food all the time until 3 weeks out. And so I think that is a perfect example of, if you do this, you will feel significantly more satisfied you'll just feel significantly more satisfied. You won't have to worry about your cravings and all that. I wasn't craving other garbage. I was like, I'd rather eat a little bit more chicken breast today. It wasn't anything crazy. It's not like I want to go out and eat cookies and pizza. I didn't feel that way, because once you train your body to instead of attaching food to a feeling, or the feeling of like happiness in the moment, you attach the feeling of food to your overall well-being. So when I eat food, my energy would be good. My skin would clear up. I would feel stronger. I would feel leaner. I would feel healthier, a little bit lighter. I don't know how to explain this. I'm sure after a night out, let's say you go drink and you eat some pizza, the next day you just feel heavy and gross. And never feeling that way was such an addicting feeling to me, because every single day, every single day I was feeling better and I had more energy. And that's not something most people feel when they're dieting. Most people, I would assume, when they're dieting, just feel like garbage and everything's terrible and I can't believe I have to do this. Not once did I feel that way. I'm a little bit crazy. I like competition. And so I understand that maybe everybody doesn't have that about them, but also everybody does not have to get as lean as I was getting. So, that process just completely changed me, because I saw the way that, again, I attached the way that the foods that I ate made me feel. I found the foods that specifically made me feel the best. And I think that for the rest of my life now, because I had that experience in an extreme environment where I was in an extreme diet, that I can have these habits for the rest of my life. So even if I am not dieting, I do not track my food whatsoever anymore, because I think mentally that's very draining over time. I'd recommend that most people don't, unless you're having an extremely hard time losing weight after you've already implemented all these things that we're going to talk about in this podcast. Then maybe do that. But unless you're competing, you don't need to do that. And I don't do that because I don't think it's sustainable. But since I'm following this whole foods diet, I feel satiated all the time. I feel great. And that's something that I guess this whole experience really proved to me.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think too that what you were saying about the discipline that something like this requires it's like obtaining that state of peak performance for such an extended period of time. I mean, you were training for this competition for 12 weeks. That's 3 months. So that's a decent amount of time to be regulating all the things that you're putting into your body, how you're moving your body, the kinds of things that you're feeding your brain. It's all very, in my opinion, regimented. You have to take account for everything. And so to be able to prove to yourself that you were able to maintain that level of consistency and discipline proved so much more to you mentally than it did physically even. You know, you were able to reap those results of your discipline and consistency on a physical level, but to be able to prove to yourself that you're capable of getting down to that low of a percentage of body fat, or being in the gym so consistently, or only fueling your body and denying the urge to eat the pizza or go out drinking or whatever it was. Like, I think that proved so much to you mentally. And I think that because of who you are and how much I relate to you, because I resonate with so many of the things that you're passionate about. And I think it really all boils down to the fact that we are achievers at our core, and we're so hungry understand, what we're capable of. And so there's just this constant like desire to be the best that you can. And sometimes, that can get a little bit like, oh, okay, just give yourself a moment to breathe, like appreciate where you're at, like there's a balance, whatever. But I think that you going through that process was so powerful for the past version of yourself to be able to look up to, and the future version of yourself to be able to refer back to as a track record of your abilities, which I think is so awesome. And, with your whole diet really, really shifting to focus on these nutritionally dense and rich foods is something that I want to talk about next. I want to go into a little bit about some of the misinformation that you and I have talked about a little bit in previous conversations that the fitness industry tends to spread. But yeah, I want to talk a little bit about the diet aspect to the fitness industry. Some of the misinformation that we spread. And then you can also talk a little bit about this obsession that the mainstream media has with like cardio when you're talking about fitness. Why is strength training so important for peak physical performance and health? We'll talk about diet first, and then we can bridge a little bit into some of the misinformation spread around more of the physical activities that pertain to health.
Perfect. I just want to go ahead and state this right off the bat. I don't think that any one diet is perfect for anyone. And I think that with everything, it is so important to have balance, to have an 80-20, or so balance to everything that you do in life, not necessarily just the diet. But even in my own life, it's like, if my mom cooks me a meal, I'm not going to ask her what's in it. I'm going to say, Mom, thank you so much for providing this for me. It's such a wonderful thing. If I go out with my wonderful friend Gabby to a restaurant and we have breakfast, I am going to eat whatever is served me, and I'm not going to question it, because I know that in the other times of my life where I'm preparing food for myself, I can control what's in it. But it is a very important reminder, first and foremost, life is short. Have these wonderful connections with people. But when you can control the food, that's a different story. So, I think that it is very important, because I specifically base, I would say, at least 50% of my diet off of meat. That is the most important part of my diet. And again, like I was saying, for thousands, hundreds, whatever, long time, people have been eating meat. And I think it's funny because all these chronic illnesses that people deal with, I'm thinking of heart disease, and cancer is more prevalent now, and diabetes, and all of these things are coming up. Were not problems 100+ years ago. These are modern issues that we're dealing with. So I think it's very funny when people go, meat's causing cancer, meat's causing heart disease, meat's causing this, people have been eating meat, and people have been eating butter, and people have been eating all bacon and everything. I don't know why. I know bacon's meat, but all of these things that people are like, oh, this is so terrible for you, for hundreds and thousands of years. Why is it that all of a sudden these things are causing diseases? They're not. People weren't dying of, as often. I will say it was not as prevalent. People were not dying of cancer or having heart disease or having diabetes or having chronic inflammatory diseases. This was not happening hundreds and thousands of years ago. These are modern issues that we've been dealing with within the last 100 years, and much more specifically in the last 50 years, since my favorite thing in the world to demonize, seed oils, have been invented. And so this is a very big problem that I have, because seed oils are in everything. So what are seed oils? I think this is important to define. Canola oil, vegetable oil, soybean oil, peanut oil, any blank oil. The ones that I want to kind of disassociate from that are avocado oil, olive oil, and coconut oil. Those three are completely different. They're made completely differently. Don't think about those. But all these seed oils are in absolutely everything you eat. I'm going to give everybody here watching a challenge. Next time you go to the grocery store, go look at any food that has a product label or a nutrition label on it, or ingredient label. Geez. And I would be willing to bet 97.5% of everything that you look at is going to have seed oils in them. And now, again, everything in moderation, I think, is okay. But when you look at the fact that this is in everything, it starts to become a very, very, very big problem, as we have noticed over the last 50 years with the rise of all these chronic diseases. And so the ideal ratio of omega, sorry, I should start with this. There's multiple different kinds of fats, but omega-3s and omega-6s, I'm sure most people have heard of. So things like salmon are really high in omega-3s, and omega-6s are the heart-healthy seed oils. Please disregard that information. It's important to have both. Omega-3s are very good for anti-inflammatory. They're good at calming your body down and getting rid of inflammation. And omega-6s are important for ramping up that inflammation. So hence why they cause inflammatory diseases, because seed oils are extremely high in linoleic acid, which is an omega-6 fatty acid. And the ideal ratio you want to have to these in your body is 1-to-1. That is what we've had forever. That is, before pre-seed oils and whatnot, that is, most people were pretty close, that 1-to-1. And that's really good. So when, let's say I get a cut right here, my body will use those omega-6s, have that inflammatory response, send stuff over here to heal this up. But the problem lies when you have too many of these omega-6s in your body and you start getting, like, I'll use arthritis as a really good example because it's very easy to explain. Arthritis is a immune response when your body starts attacking its own cells. And so when everything's super ramped up and there's pro-inflammatory everything coming in, it starts attacking you, and you don't want that. That is the cause, one of the major causes of most chronic diseases. And so, like I was saying, the ideal ratio is 1-to-1 in your body. Gabby, I would just like you to take a guess. What do you think that the ratio is today? Omega-6s to omega-3s. Take a guess. It's a wild guess.
I feel like it's terrifying. I'm going to say 1-to-6.
Okay. 1-to-6. Good answer. The average is about 20-to-1. 20-to-1. So, exactly. So you begin to understand how big of a problem that is. And so, like I said, I don't think that omega-6s are not bad. You need them in your body. But the problem is there's these omega-6s in every single food you eat, even the things that you wouldn't think would have them in them. Go look at anything that's processed. Go look at the ingredient label. Seriously, next time you go to the grocery store, do that. Yeah. And they're terrible. They're absolutely terrible for you. And so I think it's important to not only know that these are bad, but what are some alternatives that we can use to these seed oils? Because I know that, well, if this is bad and it's in everything, well, then what am I supposed to do? For one, avoid processed foods, because I think that processed foods are the devil. They are so terrible beyond just the omega-6s, the seed oils in them. It's not good for you. They're super high in refined sugars. They're super high in all these things that are going to make your body overeat them. They taste good for a reason. Food companies are incentivized to make their products taste as good as possible, so you get addicted to them and you buy them and you buy them and you buy them and you buy them. They profit from you being addicted to their foods. So The good news is when you eat whole foods, they have all these different foods have mechanisms in them that say you're full. You do not need to eat anymore. So I don't know if you've ever tried to overeat on steak or on bananas. It's like you probably can't eat that much. You can only eat so many bananas. You can only eat so many blueberries. You can only eat so much meat. It's like all of a sudden you're like, okay, yeah, I don't need to eat anymore. And you probably can't get your body to that feeling of like, you're done with a Thanksgiving meal and I am stuffed to the brim full of food. You probably don't feel that way when you're done eating these whole foods. And that's on purpose because you're not supposed to feel that way. We're so used to these modern foods that are so appetizing. They're just so good that your body says, we may never get this again. there's no cheeseburgers in nature. There's no Twinkies in nature. You can't go pick a Twinkie off a Twinkie tree and go eat those. But I was going to say, if you get cookies and you have let's say a whole sleeve of Oreos, I myself have personally demolished an entire pack of Oreos in one sitting. And that's probably more calories than I eat an entire day. And guess what? That was not the only thing I ate that day. And so processed foods, garbage, stay away from them. Anyways, we're talking about alternatives to seed oils. That got down in a rabbit hole there. So we're going to round back.
I almost want to pause because with the whole processed foods, I think that at the end of the day, it's so, I don't want to say difficult, but like you said, those types of ingredients that are there, it's dopamine. Like it all reverts back to this idea of dopamine, because it's like the synthetic sugars and everything that is put into these really awful foods. I mean, it's like you can't satiate your hunger, because not only is it like not a hunger of just, your body that you're trying to fulfill with these foods that aren't whole, but it's a hunger of the mind. And that's where overeating comes into play, of like the mind body connection, because the dopamine hit that you think you're getting from these sugary foods, it's such an unsustainable type of, brain body connection. Like it's not sustainable. And I think too that with all of the processed foods going on, outside of meat, outside of, whether you are a vegetarian or you eat a bunch of meat, like the real issue, I believe, lies in the processed foods and how we're growing these things. How, you said you eat grass-fed beef. Okay, that's awesome. A lot of the other brands out there that we have for meat, or Impossible Burgers, God forbid those things.
Oh my God, don't even get me started.
Yeah, no, but I mean, like the mechanisms in which they cultivate this meat and prep it and send it out. I mean, that is the true issue. It's not the meat itself that people are eating, or it's not, the food itself people are eating, but the ingredients that go into these kinds of foods. It's so bad for your body, and it's so bad for your brain. And so I guess for you, I want to stay on this processed foods idea really quickly. If you can give some whole foods that you eat on a routine basis, what does that look like for you? And what are some key foods that you have eliminated because you have learned so much about nutrition and about diet, about the brain body connection and everything of that sort?
Oh, so of course, I'm so glad you touched on so many of these things. You're bringing up so many points that I'm like, somewhere in my mind, I know I wanted to touch on, but you're bringing them up. So, like I said, I eat primarily in my diet meat. Most of that meat comes from beef, just because I think that beef is the healthiest meats you can eat are the ones that are raised as close as they can be to the way that they would have lived in nature. So, like cows eat grass. If there's a wild cow is going to be eating grass. And so if you can get cows that were fed grass, wonderful. You're getting a cow that is exactly how it would have been raised in nature. So like there's problems with stuff like pork, where pork is fed grain and soy. Pigs would not have eaten grain and soy out in nature. There's no wild grain and soy that pigs would have been fine. So that's a problem. So ground beef, 100% grass-fed finished ground beef, sometimes steaks. I like shrimp. I like eating salmon every once in a while. I try to not eat that as much. But I usually stay away from chicken and pork. They're not bad, but lots of the times the way that they're raised is not evolutionarily consistent with how they would have been raised in nature. So again, chicken and pork are usually fed soy and grain. And I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole of why soy and grain aren't great right now, but I just avoid that. So we'll go with that for now. So mostly eat meat, fruits, honey, eggs, dairy. That is, I would say, 80% of my diet. And I just want to preface again that I don't think that this is the way that everybody should be eating. I think that everybody is going to be different. I don't eat vegetables. Oh my gosh, so crazy. And we'll get into that a little bit later. But I don't eat vegetables because I think that I can get all the nutrients that I need from everything that I'm eating. So some of the things that I've cut out are, and I think this is going to be a very short list because it's very simple, processed foods. I don't eat anything that's processed. Everything that I eat is single ingredient. I guess if you count every once in a while, like I'll have like like a natural ketchup that I put on my cheeseburgers or something, and I look at the ingredients and it's like vinegar, tomatoes, water, salt. So like I don't count that as processed, but I don't eat any of that processed stuff. That would be most of my diet.
So let's break down, okay, when you say processed, because
Hmm.
it's it's a little bit hard to wrap your brain around, okay, what is processed, what is not, because when you're looking at the ingredient
Hmm.
label and you're like, oh my gosh, there's so many things that go on in, this food I didn't even know existed, like why can't I pronounce this ingredient, or like whatever, what does processed mean to you, or when you're looking for things to eat or not eat, when you, I guess, is it the number of ingredients? Like I want to make this as simple to understand as possible for
Yeah,
people that are listening.
super, super, super simple. So, like, let's say I look at an ingredient list of something I want to buy. So, like a hot dog, in my mind, there's good ones and there's bad ones. I really like hot dogs, so I wanted to find a way that I could eat hot dogs. And so, when I look at an ingredient list for a hot dog, let's say we're going to use this example. When I look at that ingredient list, I want to make sure that all of the ingredients on that list are like single whole foods. So it's like the hot dogs that I eat. I wish I had a picture of the ingredient label here, but they're beef, spices, salt, and that's basically it. So it's like 100% grass-fed beef, spices, salt. So in my mind, that's a whole food. Maybe it went through a process to put it into that form, but it's not like it when you look again, when you look at labels, there's a million different things that you don't know what those are. It's like those aren't foods. Those are we supposed to be consuming those? And lots of times there's chemical names for certain foods that may not be bad, but odds are if you're going in that inner portion of the grocery store and you're not staying around where there's just the fruits and the vegetables and the dairy and the cheese, like everything, it's probably stuff that you want to stay away from. So there's always going to be exclusions to this, but the problem is they're very few and far between. So I have to give very specific examples of what it is. But again, I make sure that 80% of my diet is those whole foods that are on the outside of the grocery store and those things where if I look at the ingredient list, it's those single food items. So if it's like a coconut oil, if it's oats, if it's, things like that that I know are not so denatured from what the original form of the food was that
Yeah.
you don't even recognize it anymore, right?
Okay, that makes sense. And I think too, I don't know if you've ever used it before, but for people who are just now getting into this and don't know what ingredients to look out for, you can make it simple in the terms of, hey, try to keep it as minimal as possible. Whole foods, you're probably not going to have a long, long, long list of ingredients. It will probably just be, okay, this is what you're eating, and it might have a couple of spices in here or there, whatever. But
Yeah.
I have used the app in the past called Yucca, and I don't know if you've ever used that before, and I'm not sure if you've ever, heard anything about it. But I know that for me, sometimes if I'm curious as to what is this ingredient, if I scan a barcode label of something in the grocery store, and this also goes for other products as well, skincare, like makeup, hair, whatever, and you can scan it and see what the ingredients are and you can read more about them. That's something that I've used. Have you ever heard of that?
So I've heard of similar products to that, but again, in my own life. So I'm speaking everything that I talk about today is things that I've experienced in my own life and that I use for myself. This isn't necessarily specific to anybody else, and so because I literally never shop the middle of a grocery store. I don't have any great advice for that. So
Sure.
the way that everything that I'm speaking on is the way that I do things. But I think that what you just mentioned is wonderful. And that's a very good resource for people if they're just, again, very surface level on this stuff and they may not know what's good or what's bad and they still want to incorporate some of those more processed foods into their diet. I think that that's wonderful because I know that not everybody is going to be as intense as I am with this. I think that's a very practical alternative. So thank you for mentioning that.
Yes, absolutely. Because that's essentially what I would like everyone who's listening to understand is that it's not 0 to 100 real quick. Like it is a process.
Yes.
It can be. And I think that it might seem daunting to some people because let's say that I were to, release this episode and everyone who listened went to go look in their pantry of all of the things that they had and then started looking at the
everything would go in the garbage.
You're like, oh my God.
That's the problem.
Yep. Panic attack. You know what I'm saying? So I think that it is really important that, hey, next time you're at the grocery store, like take a look at the ingredients next time, or maybe head over to some of those aisles that are a little bit more sustainable and whole foods.
I think that it's all of these things went so hand in hand for me that it is absolutely impossible for me to say that one is more important than the other. But I will say something that had to do with all of these was setting goals for myself in every single thing that I was doing. So as far as diet was concerned, I was eating fast food almost every single day. Just because, again, like I said, I was running businesses and I was detailing cars at the time. So I was all over the place all the time. I was eating fast food every single day. So like a goal for me was I'm literally just going to pack a lunch, like pack some food for myself. That was a goal that I set for myself. As far as in the gym goes, I would set certain numbers for myself that I wanted to reach as far as lifts are concerned. Back to the diet thing, like a certain weight that I wanted to get to, which I don't always, agree with everybody should set weight goals. But for me, that was something that because I knew how healthy I was at a certain weight, that was something I wanted to get back to. And then as far as, the mental was concerned, setting goals for myself where I was getting into real estate. I wanted to be a real estate agent. That was where I wanted to further my career. And I was like, okay, what's a goal for myself? I'm going to get my real estate license. Obviously, there were smaller goals in between of like things that I would do every single day to work towards every single one of these goals that I had. But I think that goal setting is probably the most important thing for your mental health and for, just your overall productivity. So for me, I've heard this example used before, so I'm going to go ahead and use it again. I wish I knew who to give it credit to, but I don't even remember at this point. When we set goals for ourselves, life becomes kind of like a game. So I don't know, Gabby, I'm assuming you don't play video games. Probably not. No. Okay. Totally fine. Totally fine. But guys, I'm sure you can understand this. Guys, so many guys are addicted to video games. So many guys are addicted to video games. And why is that? If you don't play, it's going to be very hard to understand this. But in the video games, there's all of these goals. There are, quests, objectives, et cetera, et cetera. And every time you achieve something, every time you check something off the list and you get a little bit better, you get this incredible dopamine spike and it makes you feel so good. Hence why, I'm not going to generalize, but people that don't have as much going on in their lives will usually play video games because it gives them that feeling of I'm achieving something in life. So for me, I wanted to make my life like a video game, and I wanted to set all these different goals for myself so that every day I could go, I did that, I'm getting better. And not only do I'm just like, okay, I'm getting better, but I can literally look at the progress I'm making here. I was tracking everything that I was doing, and because I was setting these goals, checking everything off one by one, I knew here is the proof that I'm getting better. So I think that the goal setting was the most important thing in everything that I was doing.
That is so awesome. And I 100% agree with everything that you've said. And the idea of playing video games and, tacking off these achievements, putting them under your belt and everything like that. I mean, it can be a little bit of a metaphor for life because you can make your life into that same similar model of, hey, I am working on this. And once I check this off, I'm on to the next and I can see my progress and it's fun, it's exciting. And I think that's really, really awesome. Again, we always talk about there's a balance with everything, 80-20. There is a time to appreciate where you're at and just be present, focus on all the things, be proud of yourself, everything, really bask in the moment. But I think that goal setting, you're so absolutely right, is so, so essential for peak performance mentally, in my opinion. I know that if I am not setting goals, even if they're just small scale on a daily basis, I'm less likely to feel like I'm in charge of my day, if that makes sense. I feel more like life is happening to me than I am living. So I know that for me, if I am ready to have a great day, I like to, and this might be a little bit psycho, but I like to plan it down to the minute. Like I want to know what I'm doing and when I'm doing it, because for me, in that discipline, it creates more freedom. So if I know that the first thing I'm going to do in the morning, all right, I'm going to make my bed, I'm going to do all of my oral hygiene, all of, I'm going to shower, I'm going to do this, I'm going to make sure that I don't look at my phone for the first 30 minutes. I've got that first 30 minutes of my day planned. That is all that I'm focused on. And then my next 30 minutes, maybe it's okay, now you're getting ready for the next hour and a half, you're going to be in the gym. And then when you come home, I have an hour sectioned off for I'm going to make breakfast, I'm going to enjoy it, I'm going to see my dogs, and I'm going to spend my time doing this and this only. It's like that regimented schedule, achieving those goals and then being able to check those things off your list. Not only does it then allow you to be present in each of those steps to carry out your successful day, but it also allows you to cultivate that attitude of like, hey, I did this. And then I can go on and I can do the next thing because I've already got it planned for myself. And like, here's my next goal and I'm going to achieve it, you know? So just mentally, it
Yeah.
creates such a more fulfilling space for me, I know.
Yeah.
Okay, very awesome. Now, I definitely don't want to skip these two things. I know that this has already been such an amazing conversation, and I'm so grateful. But I do want to talk a little bit about, because you had it in some of your areas of knowledge and expertise, about male hormone optimization. What does that really mean? I know that that might be something that is correlated to, you know, your diet and all of the other things that we talked about, mind-body connection, everything like that. But I would like to hear a little bit about where you're coming from in your knowledge of that and how you think that our generation would benefit from hearing about some of the things that you might have to share.
So, as you said, yes, it does have to do with everything. Everything, health is very holistic. Health is everything does a little bit of something. And I think that the most important thing for guys is your testosterone, I will say, is it just what literally makes you a man is the male sex hormone. And so the most important things we can do for that are avoiding all of the estrogenic chemicals in everything. So the problem is they are in everything. There's xenoestrogens and phytoestrogens. And so what both of these things do is they mimic estrogen in the body, in males and females. So this is super important because having too much estrogen in a female body is not good as well. I don't know enough about female hormones to speak confidently on that. But as far as guys go, I got you guys. So xenoestrogens are mimicking chemicals that come from things like plastics and different chemicals and phthalates and fragrances and BPA and PCBs. Yeah, all these different things. And like I said, they're everywhere. So things that I try to avoid to make sure that I don't get these estrogens, because when you get estrogens in your body, it also lowers your testosterone, which again, for guys, you don't want. Low testosterone is correlated with a lot of health problems in guys. I don't have to tell you guys about that. I'm sure you already know that. So avoiding these things in plastics is, or you know what? I have a list of this stuff. I purposely prepared for this moment because I knew this was going to be a question that's asked. Yes. So first things first, these are not in any specific order. They are just as they are. So if you can avoid these things, it's wonderful. The first thing on the list is buying organic produce. So produce is always sprayed with pesticides and nastiness, some things more than others. If you've seen it's a Dirty Dozen or something like that, it's a very good comprehensive list of like, if they're on that list, buy organic. If not, yeah, you can probably get away with it. But at the very least, wash your produce, wash the things that you're eating, because if you're not, you're ingesting all this stuff. And I'm telling you guys, again, all this stuff that I'm about to say also goes for guys and girls. Just wash it. Just please wash it. The more simple foods that you can buy, the better. So we already touched on that. When you're eating healthy, it's good for your testosterone. I don't need to touch on that anymore. Something that's super important that most people fail to do because it's difficult. Stop drinking out of plastic bottles. When plastic bottles are, water bottles you buy, the big packs from the grocery store, when they sit in those bottles, the water is getting, the plastic leaching into all the water. It's disgusting. You don't want that. That is one of the biggest sources of xenoestrogens in the whole world. So avoid that at all costs. On that topic of water, we should probably be avoiding drinking just regular tap water as well. Again, if you're really curious, you can look up tap water reports in your area, and you would be amazed at not only the endocrine disruptors, things that are affecting your hormones, but just the lead and mercury and all this stuff, this garbage that's in here, chlorine, like it's so bad for you. And I know that everybody's not going to go out and buy glass water bottles. I like to buy Mountain Valley water bottles, but they're like $3 a pop. I know that's a little bit crazy, but I value getting very high quality water. If that goes to show you how important this is, $3 for a liter of water, that's how seriously that I take this. Maybe you don't take it that seriously, but I'm just letting you know it's important. So what are some alternatives to plastic bottles and tap water? Because that's like, okay, well, those are my only options. No, you can get really high quality reverse osmosis systems for your house. It costs like $200, which sounds like a lot, but your health is important.
Yep. Yep.
And in the grand scheme of things, if you are putting a filter on your water, you can get some wonderful Yeti mug like Gabby has and fill that with water. Yeah. So you can just keep reusing reusable bottles. Obviously you have to replace those filters every once in a while, but that is a wonderful alternative to glass bottles in plastic and just regular tap water. So next on the list, very important stuff, fragrances. So I know that this is kind of a weird one. Some people, you either know about this or you don't know about this. I use nothing in my life. We're going to personal hygiene products now. Nothing that contains fragrances. So if ever you look at something on a bottle, if you're using any products, like I said, hygiene products, and you look on the label and it says fragrances, garbage. I don't touch it. And it's so funny because I've been not using products with fragrances in them for so long. If I go to the gym and I smell somebody that has cologne on, it makes me want to vomit. Like, it's so bad because it's like, oh my God, it's affecting me and my brain and whatever. And yeah, anyways, not ideal. But fragrances, again, are very, very disruptive for your hormones and you want to avoid them at all costs. The problem is they're in everything. So again, what are some alternatives to this? Like if I think my deodorant's over there somewhere, but the deodorant that I use has essential oils in it. And obviously there's higher quality ones and lower quality ones, but if you can get organic essential oils, those are safe. Those are not going to, well, in the context of hormones, they're not going to affect your hormones, or not nearly to the extent of something that a synthetic fragrance would. So stay away from fragrances. Washing your hands. I know that sounds like a silly one, but anytime you're touching stuff, especially, I know I'm contradicting myself right now. This clothing that I'm wearing right here, this shirt from Lululemon, is a polyester blend, which I usually try to stay away from, but I have a few of them because I like how they fit. But they can have polyester fibers on there that, get off and now they're on my fingers and then they're getting in my mouth and everything. That's a less so important one. Obviously, if I'm not following it, it's not as important, but these are things that you should think about. Just avoiding plastics in general. I think this is a huge one. So oftentimes if you are trying to be healthy, you'll think, okay, I'm going to start meal prepping. Meal prepping is a healthy thing to do so you can be prepared. I agree. This is one of the steps. There's steps to the level of craziness here. And, and people will get these really cheap plastic containers off of Amazon. I've seen so many people use them because you can get so many for such an inexpensive price that they use them, and that's fine because you're being intentional with your eating. I think intentional eating is important. But when you're placing hot food directly into a plastic container, especially these really cheap, the black plastic is the worst.
Yeah.
Anything that like a microwavable dinner comes in is the worst. We're putting hot stuff directly in there, and then we put it in the fridge. And then what do we do when we want to eat it? We nuke it in the microwave. And like, especially if you've seen, right. Yeah. So sometimes your plastic is melting. There's plastic. And that is, if you don't think that's getting into your food, you're living in fairy tale land. That stuff is going right into your food. And again, the xenoestrogens in that will mess you up, especially if this is something you're doing every single day. Now, every once in a while, if you get, oh, I have to eat this because, I got to do it, that's fine. It's not going to kill you. Nothing's going to kill you once. But the alternatives to this are glass Tupperware. And it's like, okay, that's a lot of an initial investment, which is true. I mean, I think you can get they sell big sets at Costco. Costco is a wonderful place for buying stuff in bulk, as we all know. But if you go buy the big packs at Costco, they're relatively inexpensive, and you can use those things forever. And yes, lots of times the tops on them are plastic, but because the food's never actually coming in contact with the tops, it doesn't really matter. So you can use those forever. They don't break. They're super high quality. There's going to be nothing leaching in your food. They're easier to clean. They're not going to melt. So I think that's 100% worth the investment. That's all that I use when I do meal prep. So highly recommended as far as that goes. Another thing, again, this is going to be one of the more underrated ones, but having a clean environment. So what I really like to do is, I don't have it here with me because I'm in the process of moving right now, but I have an air filter that sits next to my bed. So obviously if you're in your bed for 8 hours a day, you're going to be breathing a lot of air. You're going to be sitting there for 8 hours at least every single day. And lots of times you got air moving around, stuff gets dirty, you get lazy, you don't clean. That's something that you should start thinking about. Again, these are smaller things, but I'm going to talk about everything just so that we have an idea of, what really needs to be considered. But if you can, you go look at the back of your TV and you haven't cleaned it in probably 3, 5, 4, whatever years, it's probably pretty disgusting. And all that stuff is going up into the air and you're breathing it in. And lots of the times that's lint from synthetic fabrics. If your bed sheets are made out of polyester, which I don't recommend. Again, this is another one of the more expensive things, but my sheets are made out of linen. And I think that's a much superior fabric to polyester. It keeps you cool. They last forever. They feel really nice and luxurious, like you're in a hotel. It's wonderful. But, clean as much as you can. And then the air filter is another big thing. I keep it right next to my bed. So at night, I'm breathing in clean air. And especially for people that have allergies like me, it will significantly reduce your allergies, especially if you get a really high quality one. You'll wake up feeling a lot less congested, which is a godsend for me, because when I don't have my air filter around, I wake up with my eyes puffy and stuffy nose, and it's not a wonderful thing. Lastly on this list, this is a big one that I started incorporating recently, is cleaners. So if you are doing a lot of cleaning on anything that you're doing, it's super important to not use, I don't even want to get started. I don't know what most of the stuff is in like heavy duty cleaners, kitchen cleaners and whatnot. But if you're touching it and you're breathing it in and it's all this nasty nonsense, guys, you can use vinegar and baking soda, and I put lemon juice in when I make like spray bottles. Yep. Vinegar with water, 50-50 mix, and then lemon juice. Smells plenty good, and it's not going to kill you. So it's wonderful, and it's dirt cheap. This is finally one of these things that you can actually save money on, which is a wonderful thing. So going back to just the cleaners and touching on the personal hygiene products, your skin is, it's like just basically one big mouth. Anything you put in your skin is going to be absorbed very much. So if you're putting, spraying down chemicals and you're touching them, they get in your hands and stuff, it's like, oh, I just washed my hands, it's fine. By the time you wash your hands, it's all absorbed into your body, and you don't want that. Same with, makeup products and hair, everything getting absorbed into your body. So it's really important to avoid that stuff. I personally use, I think this is, again, important to note alternatives to the personal hygiene stuff. There's 2 companies that I buy products from, which obviously I have no affiliation with whatsoever. I just appreciate good products. Van Man and Based Balms. Both of those companies are fantastic. Just Google them, go on Instagram, whatever. But they give you alternatives to every single personal hygiene product you could ever imagine, and that has all of your bases covered. And it's seriously not any more expensive than high quality traditional hygiene products.
That is awesome. And I think that everything that you've talked about could be its own episode, right? Like cleaners, disinfectants, and all the chemicals that go into that, air filters, water filters, tap water, all could be their own episode. But I appreciate that you touched on all of those things, because I think that at the end of the day, like you said, your mission is to give a general basis of understanding that will hopefully inspire people to do some more research on their own, which I think is exactly what today's episode has been encompassing, and I'm really, really excited about everything we've talked about today. The last thing that I want to ask you are, what are your goals right now? What are you currently working on? Anything that you would like to share about, your mission and how you're carrying that forth with what you're doing? And this is your time to kind of plug your Instagram, any other sources, or how people can follow your journey after this episode.
Wonderful. So I guess I'll start with where you guys can find me. I'm pretty much only active on Instagram these days at Drake Luedke. If you guys have any questions whatsoever, I will feel 100% confident answering whatever you have. And if I can't answer something, I will totally point you in the right direction to somebody who is smarter than me that can answer the question for you. So I think that's super important. I did not want to touch on anything that I did not feel comfortable touching on, because there is so many people in this world smarter than I, and I'll let them explain it. Again, as Gabby just stated, this was just supposed to be surface level to get you guys thinking about all this stuff. And I feel like we've done that. You have a lot to go off of right now. So I totally apologize. I forgot the initial question. I'm just so ADD. I'm like,
I love it.
Where do we start here?
No, attention deficit disorder. No, it's a superpower. Okay.
So bad. I'm trying not to bounce off the walls right here. You should see my legs going right now.
It's the best conversations, I swear. I love it. All my ADD friends, shout out. Y'all are the best. No, But basically what I was asking, what are your goals right now? What are you actively working on?
Mm,
And
nice.
what is kind of like your number one priority right now? You know, is it just maintaining your health and where you're at, or are you actively working on something
Whew.
big
Come
that we can
on,
talk about?
Gabby. I have this lifelong goal to learn as much as possible, and that's why I surround myself with people that are smarter than me that I can learn from. So, Gabby, I think that you're one of those people. I like learning from you. I like learning from everybody. I think you can take something from everybody. But as far as my own personal goals go, I just moved back from Grand Rapids back to the east side of Michigan where I'm from. And so I'm working on getting an in-person personal training job right now. I have funny enough, on Tuesday, actually, an in-person interview with Equinox Gym in Bloomfield
Yeah.
Hills, which is really cool. It is kind of a dream job. I think that would be super awesome to go work in a nice high-end environment when I have access to people that really want to get better. So I think that that's great. Beyond that, though, because I think more important than that, working on stuff on my own, I offer online coaching now, which I am so excited about because I've seen the way that all this stuff has impacted my life, and I've kind of tried to give you guys a little bit of an insight. But you'll probably never understand the magnitude of which all this stuff has helped me unless you do it yourself. I always say that most people don't know what good feels like. And that's because most people are living the way that the average person does. And so once you start to feel how good all this stuff feels and how amazing it's euphoric. It's like, seriously, it's so amazing. And so I guess another one of my big goals is just continuously chasing this, learning as much as I can so that I can obviously help myself and then help as many other people as possible, get this message out to people. That's why I'm so thankful that you had me on this podcast. I've had an opportunity to talk to people that I get to talk to here. And that's my biggest goal, I would say, is helping as many people as I can and opening the eyes to the fact that health and fitness is so important, is so important, not just to living a long life, because I think that everybody thinks, well, if I'm only going to live an extra 3, 4, 5 years, who cares? It doesn't matter. That's not the point. The point is not living a longer life. The thing is living a longer or a higher quality of life. My quality of life is extraordinarily better than it was, just a few years ago, just a year ago even. I'm continuously getting better. So those are my biggest goals, I would say right now, most importantly.
I love that so much. And the last thing that I will say, just touching on everything that we've really talked about today, I think that the food that you're putting in your body, the way that you're moving your body, the things that you're applying on your body, your skin is one big mouth, everything all is contributing to the overall frequency that you are radiating as a human being. And so when you are focusing on the types of ingredients, the products that you're using, the types of exercise that you're doing. Exercise in general is awesome because, endorphins, they're awesome. Like you genuinely feel this, like you're working towards something and achieving something and you feel good about doing it. And it raises your frequency. Like you really are happier because of it. And I think that I don't want to make it sound, oh, this is super easy. Here's a one fix for all. If you're having a depressive episode, just, smile. I don't want to sound like that, but I do think that taking the time to focus on what you're feeding your body and your brain, it really does have such impactful and profound effects on your state of being because you're radiating at such a higher frequency. And the things that you're putting in your body that are processed, that are gross, if you're just moping around all day, you are vibrating at a lower frequency and then attracting things that resonate with that lower frequency. And it's all shift back to that idea of perspective and abundance and attracting what you are and everything like that. And so your focus on only putting the best things in your body attracts more opportunity for you and more abundance for you. And it really is science. And so I love that we were able to talk about all of this today. I'm super, super excited. Drake, please, if you have any other resources, if you have books that got you into this kind of thing, blogs, or anything that you want to plug, please send me links. I will put that all in the episode description. And then, of course, we'll tag your Instagram. And then hopefully if anybody has any questions, they can reach out to you personally. But I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time to come onto the show and really just being a light for everyone who may have been curious to learn more about the health and fitness industry. You have been able to break down some very complex ideas into simplistic terms that allow for not only someone who may have experience with some of these topics, but no experience at all to understand what you're talking about and hopefully instill that desire to go out and do their own research. So I really, really appreciate your time today. And if there's anything else that you want to share, please do so now. Otherwise, I will link everything in the episode description.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate this opportunity. It's so cool. Regardless of the podcast, just being able to chat with you and be able to touch on all this stuff, I think is so incredible. But one very last thing, I promise it'll be brief, that I want to touch on that you just mentioned that I think is the most important thing. And if you get nothing out of all of this, I think this is the key thing that you need to know, is that anytime you are trying to be intentional with your health and fitness, you are doing more than almost everybody is doing. If you are intentional with the foods that you eat, even if they're not exactly what we talk about here, if you're intentional with the just trying to get to the gym, just getting there, just being intentional, setting that goal for yourself, that is the most important thing. Thinking about this stuff, being conscious about this stuff, and as you get into it more, the details will follow. But other than that, that's all I got.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Drake. And now that you're back on the east side, we got to hang out soon.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
All right, everybody, if you have questions, please check the episode description. You'll be able to see all of Drake's info there, and anything that he sends me, I'll also plug there. So, Drake, thank you so much, and I will talk to you soon, okay?
Of course. Sounds good. Take care.
Thank you all so much for tuning in to this week's episode of Crucial Conversations. I hope that you were inspired by this talk and reminded that you are capable of anything you have the capacity to imagine. Share this episode with someone that you want to help unlock their maximum potential. Because sometimes in order to find the answers, you have to know how to ask the questions. And that is what we do on this podcast. I love you all, and I will see you next time on Crucial Conversations.